Well, good afternoon, everybody. Today, well, let's just say I'm going to eat some humble pie. So, I've had the idea for a while to make a video and talk to you guys about the mistakes I made starting my business and growing the business. And, the hope is that as you grow your business, that hopefully you can avoid some of the mistakes that I made starting out with mine. And, these are mistakes that can happen at any size of business. And, so hopefully you learn a few lessons. And probably by the end of this, you'll realize that I'm just human and I make mistakes. And, yeah, hopefully you'll still listen to me because, yeah, let me say I've made a few pretty pretty good doozies of mistakes. So time for me to eat some humble pie. We're gonna go down a story lane, um, and we're gonna have a few stories here. So let's see, how are we doing this? This is how we're doing it right there. Okay, so mistake one, number one, really was leaving my job too soon, and you know we have this idea that when our business grows to a point when we match our income from our job, we can just leave our job. And while in theory that's correct, I think there's a lot more to the story than just that. So I tell people I was blessed with a low income job. I worked as a phlebotomist at the local hospital. I was making $15 an hour. Uh, and so, I was working probably 40, 50. I was putting in 5 or 10 hours of overtime every week, just because that's what you need to do when you make 15 an hour, and your wife is in school, and so she's not making any money. So we went through, and you know, by the time taxes got taken out, I was coming home with around $2,000 a month. And I figured, once I hit $2,500, $3,000 in revenue from the business, because I figured I'd have to take taxes out, I could leave my job. Well, the issue with that thought is I didn't build up enough cushion in the business to continue to grow the business once I left my job. So, you build the business and you keep dumping profits back into the business. And then there comes a point when you start drawing those profits off the business. And the issue with leaving your job too soon is there's not enough cushion built up in those profits. See, if I'd have waited till the business was making $5,000 or $6,000 in profits every month, pulling, 3,000, 4,000 off, and then just reinvesting the rest wouldn't have been a bad deal. It wouldn't have been an issue. But the issue is when you're making $3,000 in profits and then you're taking a salary of $3,000 a month, there's nothing left to reinvest back into the business. And so it leaves you with kind of a catch-22 where you want to grow the business, but you can't because the business isn't making enough. But in order to make enough in the business, you have to leave money in the business. So I wound up actually, the business for a few months after I left my job continued to grow, but then I ran up against that kind of barrier where I couldn't really grow the business any faster because I'd left my job and started taking a larger paycheck too soon. And the other part of that too is you want to make sure that you have a lot of money left sitting in the bank, in case something happens with the business. I didn't do that. I was young and stupid. Some people would say I still am, but I've learned a few things in the School of Hard Knocks over the last few years. So you want to make sure you've got a couple months of income just sitting in your personal account. Obviously, you need two accounts, so you're going to want to make sure you have at least 2 or 3 months sitting in your personal account of income, just in case something goes wrong and you need a little extra money somewhere. Just for a cushion, for peace of mind. I didn't have that, and it caused me a lot of anxiety. It caused me some emotional issues down the road. We'll probably get to those at the end. So, and the other thing you need to make sure is that you have a cash cushion built up in your business account too. And, I'm a strong proponent of running a business on credit cards, taking out other people's money. But I've also learned that there's something positive about using your own money and making sure that you have enough to base you to base your sales off. If you have a cash cushion built up, there's a certain amount of comfort that you have. If you do something and it loses money for a little while, it doesn't matter because you have the money there. If that's borrowed money and you lose it, once again, that causes you a great deal of anxiety. At least it did to me. And so that's not a position that's pleasant to be in, nor would I want you to be in it. So, before you think about leaving your job, make sure that you have not only, I'd say, at least 150%, if not 200%, of your monthly income coming in from the business in profits. Probably 200% is a good number to shoot for. But also make sure that you have 2 or 3 months of cash sitting in your personal account, and you have some cash. I'm not putting a number on it, but you have some cash. Keep it in perspective to the size of your business. If you're spending, $10,000, $15,000 in cost of goods every month, maybe you should have 10 or 15,000. Maybe you should have 20,000 in cash that you've built up. So keep at the job for a while, and what I probably should have done is I was at a point where I needed to spend more time on the business, and I went to my boss and I told my boss that I'd like to go part-time. I was working full-time. I'd like to go part-time from 45 hours down to 25 or 30, because I could do that with the business, and it would still leave me some income coming in. Well, she said no, and I said, well, thank you very much, but the business is my future, not this job. And so I left my job. What I should have done is I should have gone out and found a part-time job, that week. I should have gone out looking. I could have found, a job as a gas station attendant, and, just a few $100s a month coming in, $1,000 or $2,000 a month coming in from a part-time job would have been, all I would have needed, and then continue that way for several months. But I didn't. And, looking back, I say, I probably should have done it differently, but you know what? I don't regret leaving my job, so we'll just leave that one there. So the next one is not delegating soon enough. So story on this is we do all of our prep in-house. Of course, we have an Amazon retail business, and we ship everything into FBA, but we do all of our FBA prep in-house. And there came a point when the business had grown, and most people will run into this if they're doing their own prep. Usually I think it starts around the $20,000 to $30,000 a month range in revenue, and it also depends on what you're selling. So if you're doing your own prep, you'll find that at a certain point you're prepping so much that you're unable to continue ordering, and so the business gets into a cycle, and it gets stuck in a cycle where you spend a week because you don't have anything to prep, and you order everything because you're out of stock on everything, and so sales are down. So you go order everything, and it comes in, and when it comes time to reorder to stay in stock, you're still prepping, and you have to get the stuff prepped and turned around because that's money that you already spent. And quite honestly, I never really cared to do the prep myself. It's not something I really enjoy. I think it's a little mundane. But it was something I chose to do because I like to keep control of my business. So, what I should have done is I should have hired this out sooner. I should have paid somebody else to do my prep, or, pay a third-party logistics company to do my prep, or hired somebody sooner. Whether that's just an independent contractor, some stay-at-home mom you might know that can, do some prep to earn some extra cash, that kind of thing. I did find that the one time I was able to push my business beyond that, $30,000 to $35,000 a month range, was when I had hired a couple high school students part-time to come in after they were done with their classes for the day. They would come and pack stuff for a couple hours. And, those months that I had them, I was able to grow 40 to 50,000. Now, I didn't take that lesson to heart, because as soon as they left, because they're high school students and they have things going on, and wound up not working out the next semester for them to come back, I didn't go out and find somebody else, and I wound up sinking right back to that revenue plateau, and I didn't push past it until I finally decided to that I was done prepping and that I couldn't do it anymore. And there's more to that story than is just mentally I couldn't do it anymore. Physically, I was having some issues at the time too that I just couldn't do it. So at that point, I was forced to hire it out in order for the business to survive. So there comes a point when it says, when you realize that you have to, but ideally you should decide to do it sooner. And if it's something that you really don't care to do, you're going to put it off, and that's going to hurt the business long term. So if it's something that needs done, force yourself to either do it or hire it out. And if you find that it's slowing growth down, if it's not something that you have to do, that's easy for somebody else to do, hire it out. And, your business will grow a lot quicker. And we'll talk about business growth in a little bit here too. Okay, so number 3 is following shiny objects. So a couple of months after I had left my job, I was busy purchasing stuff, turning around, prepping it, sending it into Amazon. And that part of my business was growing very nicely. I thought I had a handle on it. I knew what I was doing. And I felt like I should branch out a little bit, which there's nothing wrong with branching out, but well, you'll realize what I did wrong. So I decided I would start drop shipping on Amazon. Now, this was a couple years ago, drop shipping on Amazon, so I'm not talking about taking stuff from Amazon and selling it on eBay. I'm talking about I had suppliers who would ship individual items with my name on the invoice, on the slip, on the packing slip. So, it was shipped from me, and I could fulfill FBM, fulfill by merchant, those items on Amazon. So I was, I decided I would start doing this because you can make a lot of money doing it, at least at the time. I got out of it for obvious reasons, and you'll find out. So I got to the point with that where I was actually making quite a bit of money. I was doing about $20,000 a month in revenue with it, and overall revenue in the business was growing. But some things came along where I wasn't watching what, so when you do this, you often have some software that helps in the data entry and stuff because there's a lot of data. Well, one of the software programs I was using had a glitch in it, and Amazon caught onto it and wound up shutting down my account because they thought I was doing things that were wrong. Obviously, I didn't realize that the software was doing this. So I had my account shut down for a couple days, and within 2 days I had it back up and running. It helped that I had really good seller feedback and that I had kept my stats up. But once I had that happen, I realized that I should pursue with a little more caution. I should pursue that scheme with a little more caution. And so I did. I backed off on that. And as soon as I backed off on that, the business revenue dropped drastically. And what happened was I had been so focused on, this FBM drop shipping products that I had failed to follow through on purchasing stuff for the FBA business that was my bread and butter up until that point. And so when the drop shipping dried up, and I backed off on it, I still did it for a few months, but I wasn't pushing it as hard, so obviously it didn't grow and didn't give me lots of money. But when that dried up, all of a sudden I was left with the shell of a business that I used to have. And I was sitting there wondering, like, what happened? And I realized, well, you know, I spent so much time focused on this other thing that I didn't keep up on the core business, which was selling stuff through FBA, selling branded items through FBA through the buy box. So from that point on, and I didn't follow this very well. It's a lesson that was very hard to learn for me, and I'm still working on learning it. From that point on, I make it a point to focus on my personal business and what makes me the most money first, and what I know well and what I can do well. And after that, then other things can come in, and I can dabble in other things, and I'll allow myself to do that because that's kind of fun and it's a change of pace, and sometimes it turns out to be very profitable. But you have to make sure that you keep focus on what the main thing is. And if you don't, that main thing is going to disappear. I see this a lot with people. They'll get a small business going and be making $5,000 or $10,000 in revenue, and buy a new course that says, oh no, you're not doing it right, you should do it this other way. And they'll completely abandon what they built and turn around and start over. And I'm like, you already had all the hard work done. It's all done. You just have to grow and scale from there. And you're just scrapping the whole thing and starting over. That's so much harder. Focus on something. If it's making you money, focus on it. Work to systematize it, and you're going to be a lot better off in the long run. And then afterward, you can focus on some other stuff. But, speaking of shiny objects, this is one that personally got me last year, and here's where I get to eat some humble pie. So last year, our business did, what were the numbers? I want to say 600,000 in revenue. We did 600,000 in revenue, and for various reasons, the overall, this was the big one. We did not make much money in profits, but the reason was for this reason alone. I spent too much money buying training that I wound up never taking and making profitable. I never pursued it far enough to turn it into a profit center. That's not the training's problem. That's my issue. It's, the shiny object syndrome. Obviously, there's more of that. And, spending too much on business trips. Now, granted, you have to go places if you're going to run a legitimate business. With this business, I would not be where I'm at if I didn't put up the money and go travel and go to trade shows. That's something that is non-negotiable. I have to do that. But when you're there, you don't have to spend a ton of money. You can travel on a budget and work on a budget, and that's okay. You don't have to go, oh, I've got a successful business. I can, stay up in the nice hotel and all that. There comes a time for that, and I'm in my personal business. I'm getting very close to being able to splurge on some of that, but I've realized that I need to back off on this. So, this year I've made one business trip, whereas last year I was making a business trip about once every other month. So, business trips to conferences, trade shows. I spent a lot on training, on kind of different courses that came out. I would buy them because I thought they looked interesting, and I'm like, I could add that onto my business. But yet I never followed through with it and followed all the steps and built the system. Partially because I knew I had to continue to focus on my main business. And, the main business, I had not gotten completely set up where it was completely automated. At this point it is, and I can turn around and, kind of ignore it and work on other stuff, which is what allows me to make these videos for you guys. I have people in my business that know what they're doing and can do it well, and I spend a couple hours a day in my business, and I like it that way because the rest of the day I'm able to kind of ask myself, okay, what's next? But I'm also very cognizant now. I've bought a lot of training courses and haven't done anything with most of them. I should probably step back and not spend any more on training for a while. So Every now and then I might put down some money on something, but I'm going to be a lot more specific about what I'm doing from here on out. So I would just caution you guys, especially if you're starting, if you have a system that you're trying to follow, don't buy any more training. Don't buy anything that's going to pull your focus away from that until you have that one thing down, and you can do it in your sleep, or you can have somebody else do it while you sleep. The second option is much better. So, I'd say that's quite honestly, well, I probably spent about $40,000 last year on training and business trips. And I don't say that to brag. I wish I hadn't. Some of that money, yes, but I probably could have cut it in half. Instead of spending 40, spend 20. I would have made the same connections. I would have met good people, and I would have had a lot more money in my own pocket, and that would have been worth it in the end. Okay, so along with those things, I'm a firm proponent of borrowing money and taking other people's money and making it work in my business. I started with no money. I was a broke, recently married, working a fairly low wage job, and young, so I hadn't built up any kind of cash reserve. I didn't have any way to build my business except with other people's money. What I would caution in this is understand that when you borrow other people's money, you can't treat it as your own. If you lose it, it can have psychologically devastating impact. When you borrow money to get your business up and running, to kind of launch and grow, what can easily happen is, after I had my account shut down for a couple days, I lived in fear, and that fear was, what if it happens again? What if it happens again and I can't get it back? I'm going to be not just out my business. I'm not just going to have to go back to my job. I've borrowed money for this business, and I'll have to tell people that I can't pay them back because the business went under, And I lived every day with this fear. Now, granted, it was an irrational fear. I was growing a solid business. I was doing everything right, but it was still a fear. And that's what borrowing money really does. And that's why I say, if I were to do it differently, I would make sure that I had a good cushion of money before I left my job. Because then, if you borrow a few $1,000s, it's like, okay, we're going to use other people's money instead of our own. But if you lose a little bit of money, if you make a bad buying decision, if you end up buying a course and, then don't ever do anything with it, it's not going to be, something where you beat up on yourself because, that money wasn't put to good use. Because it was your money and, you decide what to do with it. So I would just caution that if you're going to borrow money, be very careful about what you're going to do with that money. Are you buying something that's an asset that's, going to produce you money? Are you buying something that you can turn around and sell for more money? Or are you buying something that's just going to be nice to have? And I see a lot of new people making this mistake where they think that they have to get a new computer to run their business. And, they have to get a label printer if they're prepping. To this day, we, in our business, and we do, like 7,000 units a month, we print all of our labels off on a printer that I bought 2.5 years ago for $100. And it's a printer that ink is cheap. It's just a normal old standard printer. And I bought a printer versus a label printer because I knew I would have to buy a printer anyway. So I went out and shopped, and I found a printer that would give me, a good return on my money for, ink and all those expenses, that I could print reasonably a sheet. And, I have no reason to buy a label printer. Label printers are $100, $200, $500, depending on which model you get. And it's just a piece of equipment. Don't borrow to buy pieces of equipment. If you're prepping your own stuff, use the stuff you have. Use your printer. Yes, it's going to be more expensive because you're going to have to pay for ink, but you don't need it. And there comes a point when you'll buy something that saves you money, so it'll save you more than it costs. And we did that in our business. We used to polybag everything, and now we heat shrink everything. And I bought a commercial heat shrink machine. It was like $3,500 to buy, and I bought it used. At that point, I was getting a little smarter with my money. I bought a used piece of equipment that was very high quality, and it saves me money on a daily basis, because the difference between the heat shrink and the poly bags is so drastic that, on a per unit, when you're running 7,000 units in a month, a 15-cent savings per unit ends up, being $1,000. And we've had it for 6 months, and, it's paid back more than what it cost me. So you have to make sure that you're borrowing money and you're using the money for the right reasons. You want to buy things that will make you money or save you more than you spend on it. And typically, office equipment, that kind of stuff, office supplies, does not do that. So, be very cautious when spending on infrastructure and that end of things. Along with that, we have maybe scaling too quickly. And I talk about this in conjunction with borrowing money, because oftentimes you borrow money to scale, and you want to make sure that you keep it in perspective. So, last year we kind of scaled probably a little too quickly for what we were doing. At the start of the year, we wound up moving locations. I moved across the state of Michigan. We went from working in my own house to renting out some space in a commercial building. And, those were all good things. But what wound up happening is, once we got into the commercial building, I hired somebody to prep, because I realized I couldn't do that on my own anymore. And we started scaling, and we started scaling quickly. Now, that's not a bad thing, but what happens when you scale quickly? When you scale too quickly, not when you scale quickly, because scaling quickly is a good thing, but too quickly is bad. And, that's just how hard you put on the gas, and you'll realize if you're running out of control, spinning out of control. I didn't. We went from selling about 25 or 30,000 a month, stuck at that level. I was stuck at that level for over a year. And we went from doing that to selling 80,000 a month in the course of 5 months. So, we more than doubled, almost tripled our business. We tripled our business in 5 months. That was too quickly. And what wound up happening is we scaled so quickly that I wasn't able to keep track of the expenses that we were having. And so, I wound up paying payroll on people who were prepping and packing, and paying this and that and the other thing. And I just thought, we're growing, and, that's what we have to do because we're growing. But the sales and the spending that I was doing didn't stay kind of in sync with each other. And that's hard to do when you're scaling too quickly. Now, when you scale quickly, you can keep a, kind of a firm grasp on, okay, we're going to go from 30,000 this month to 38, we're going to go from 30 to 40, and we're going to hold at 40 for a month, and then we're going to go from 40 to 50. And each time, we're going to have to make sure that we're only growing our expenses, X amount. If we're going from 30,000 to 40,000, maybe we pull, an extra $500 that will allow ourselves to spend for expenses this month, because we are scaling. But when you're scaling from 30,000 to 50,000 to 65,000 to 75,000, it's hard to keep track of saying, okay, yes, we spent this much when we were spending, when we were making 30,000 a month. So, to keep it in track, we need to spend X, to keep it the same percentage, we need to spend, less than this much when we do 50,000. But when you're going to 75 the month after, it's like, well, yes, but we're prepping all the stuff for the next month, and it's going to be an even bigger month. So it's very hard to keep track of just how much you're spending on the revenue that you've got coming in right now. And that's where you run into problems, is keeping track of those finances. And, that's what happens when you scale too quickly. And part of it, too, is just not keeping good enough books. And, I'll be the first to admit that sometimes I do that. I don't like books. I now have a bookkeeper that does my books for me because I realized I didn't like it, so I was putting it off, and it was hurting my business. So that goes right into this, allowing too much overhead. If you're scaling too quickly, you're probably allowing too much overhead. Any kind of business can allow too much overhead. If you're not growing, you're probably allowing too much overhead. That's the first thing I look at when I'm trying to squeeze more profit out of my business. Are there things that I'm spending money on that I shouldn't be? Are there subscriptions that I'm paying for that are costing me money and I'm not getting enough value out of? And that's something that this is something I'm very cognizant in my business, and I try to do with my consulting that I do with people. I charge $400 a month. I charge $150 an hour if you just want an hour of my time. That's not insignificant. But what I'm trying to do in that time is to give them so much value that it's worthwhile. Because, in an hour time, if I'm not providing enough information to be worth that money, I need to give the money back. And, I'm very open with people that I'll do that, if I haven't met expectations. But, that's kind of where I come up with that, is you have to be very cognizant of how you're spending your money and making sure that that money is doing good work for you. So, bring on new people slower. Figure out exactly what you need. Sometimes it's not a person. Sometimes it's a program or a software solution. Figure out exactly what you need. Take the time. And part of this has to do with making sure that you scale in a good, easy manner. Growing too quickly, you're going to find that you bring on a lot of bloat, that you hire people to resolve problems, and then those people create other problems, and you'll hire other people to solve those problems. And then you end up with a big old nasty business. The simpler and smaller the business as far as the actual overhead and expenses, the better it is. So, be careful about what you're spending and where you're spending it, especially, like monthly subscriptions, payroll, expenses that you're having that occur all the time. If you can find a way to get those down and cut those expenses, and actually this is the reason that we do our prep in-house, because I figure it's cheaper for us to do it in-house than to spend money to have somebody else do it. Okay, and along with all those, we're almost done here. I know this is a long one, but, I try to tell stories, and, what can I say? This is the time that I get to talk about the struggles I've had in our personal business. So, you've probably figured out that this is one of the big ones for me, is not being careful enough about where I was spending my money. So if you don't know where the money is going, you're going to be losing money. And, especially when you're selling a lot of products, you have to be careful to go through every now and then and quit selling products that aren't making you enough money. Because, they'll tie up your money and they won't give you anything back for it. It'll just be extra busy work. And, nobody likes busy work, but oftentimes in our business, we're too busy to realize that we have that busy work by buying products that aren't really profitable. So, cutting those products will give you time because you won't be reordering, you won't be prepping, you won't be taking care of them. It'll give you time to go out and find products that are much more profitable. And the overall health of your business is going to look a lot better. So that's all I've got to say on that one. This one's where I'm going to spend the rest of my time, obviously. Not having enough fun. So what I mean by that is, hold on. Throat's getting dry, talking too long. So not having enough fun. I told you that when I first left my job, a couple months later, I started to have a lot of anxiety about what I was doing. And it wasn't that it was rational, it was anxiety. Because, I wasn't sure what would happen. I'd taken out an Amazon loan to grow my business. My parents were 25% owners in the business, mostly because I didn't have any cash to run on. So, they put up some cash and became part owners in the business. So what happened was I started to get a lot of anxiety. It's like, what if this whole thing folded and I was left and, had to tell my parents that I couldn't get the money back for them? What if I would end up having to pay that Amazon loan back out of pocket? And it got to be quite a bit of anxiety. And that anxiety turned into being unable to work because I was too anxious. And if you've ever dealt with anxiety, you probably understand how that goes. And see, it didn't end there because I started beating myself up because I wasn't working well enough. I wasn't doing enough because I was so anxious that I just couldn't have clear thoughts. So I wound up developing a fair amount of depression. And, you don't think about it, that owning your own business and having a lifestyle that, you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. That year I went to all of my little sister-in-law's soccer games. They were right after school. Most people were at work, and I could just go. And, that's such a blessing. I could take off and, go to the gym first thing in the morning, and nobody, asked me where I was when I got into work at 10, because that's what I did. So, all of the blessings that the business had given me, and I was anxious and depressed. And it took me several months to realize just how depressed I was. And I wound up going to the doctor and filling out one of those depression questionnaires. I didn't even know what depression looked like. And I filled it out. And I'm like, this is me. These are my problems. This is a problem in my life. And it's affecting everything. It's affecting my business. It's affecting my personal relationship with my wife. It's affecting everything. This is not okay. And so I wound up going to counseling and getting on, some antidepressants. And the counseling helped a lot. The antidepressants helped a lot. And over the course of the next 4 to 6 months, I got to feeling a lot better so that I could get back to working on my business. And, this was in the time when the business just kind of sat stagnant. It was going along, paying my bills, but not doing much more. Mostly because I'd left my job too early and I didn't have the money to do anything more with it. But partially because I was in a mental state where I couldn't push it any further. And it was just me. I'm a bit more of a social being. And going from a hospital setting where I'm talking to people all day and, I have coworkers and patients that I'm seeing, to sitting at home in front of my computer and not talking to anybody all day. Some days not even going outside because, I get up and get around and have breakfast and sit down at my computer and I work all day. It was bad psychologically for me, and I wasn't taking care of myself. And it took me, that time to realize that. So, by summer 2017, I was starting to feel a lot better. And that's about the time when the business started to grow, figure that out. There was a couple of reasons for that. I also made a very strategic hire and wound up hiring somebody to kind of work with me and help me do what needed to be done on my end, because I knew that I still had bad days. And I don't have as many bad days now, but, they still happen where, I'll get into work and I can't get anything done. But, it's a lot less now, partially because I wound up getting off the antidepressants, and we realized that maybe I'd been slightly over-medicated, because as soon as I started to get off them, I started to think clearer. I was able to keep track of things that I was having issues with before, and it wound up getting off the antidepressants after counseling and all that. I've been able to get off them, and I'm thinking a lot better now and being able to perform better. But I still have bad days, and because I've made the right hires and put the right people in place, I can just let people know, hey, I'm having a bad day. You're probably not going to get much out of me today. And, they take it and they run with it, and, they have fun in the business too. And, I try to allow flexibility with my employees, because I realize that I need it too. And so, if they need to leave early for their kids, or, for whatever reason, I don't bemoan them of that. That's life. I'd much rather have life than, have work and, have it be like work, So I've realized that if you don't have fun with what you're doing, you're not going to focus on it. You're not going to really take the time to dissect and to understand what's going on and to give it the attention that it needs. And so now I try to have fun in my business. We sell things that are kind of out there and kind of wacky, and I enjoy it. We do things that I find fun, and I enjoy working with the people who I've hired. And that's a big thing. You just develop, and I wouldn't call it fun like, you're going to a theme park, or, something that, people would call fun. It's a different kind of fun. It's a satisfaction. It's an enjoyment that's kind of a personal enjoyment. And, your business really isn't going to grow unless you have that enjoyment from, watching the numbers go up and saying, okay, we're going to do a record month this month. And, okay, well, we did a record month last month, but this month we're going to work on having a more profitable month than last month. We did gross sales last month. We're going to do net this month. And, kind of put those challenges out in front of yourself and in front of your team. And so if you're not having fun, it's really hard to do that. So, the last mistake I said I probably have made in this business is, not having enough fun. Because without the fun, without the enjoyment, I might as well go back and work a job. I'm going to have just as much fun there, and it's going to pay the bills, and, whatever. But I realized that there's a lot more enjoyment and satisfaction from doing what I'm doing. I get to provide jobs for people. I get to help other people who are growing their business, and that's why I put this video together. And yes, it's a long video. If you've made it to the end, well, thank you, I guess. But it is what it is. You got to be able to enjoy what you do, and at least enjoy what it gives you, and put up with it enough. And I'd say that if you're really not into how should I put this? I'm not going to, because I don't want to tell people not to do something that I know would be good for them. Build the business. And if it's not for you, you can always shut it down. But build the business, and you'll quickly realize that the things that it gives you and the ease of life and enjoyment is way more than what you could ever get anywhere else. So I'm going to end on that note. It's a nice sunny day, and I'm going to go home and go outside, and I'm going to enjoy the rest of the day and probably kick the ball for my dogs, because they enjoy that. That's their thing. They love. And so I'm going to go do that for them. You guys have a wonderful day. If you've made it to the end, thanks. Bye now.